Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Let's have a little bit of fun. So we are back with episode number 2 of If You Can Only Buy One. We're pitting the Four Roses Single Barrel up against the Four Roses Small Batch Select. So again, this is going to be episode number 2, putting these two head to head in terms of value, availability, and again, if you can only buy one, which one of these are you going to gravitate toward? So we'll give you a little bit of information and specs on each one of these. And then again, this is going to involve your participation. Let me know, let others know in the comment below as to, again, if you can only buy one, which one is that going to be? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that today on the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. Again, as we mentioned, Four Roses Single Barrel versus the Four Roses Small Batch Select. So Four Roses Single Barrel, overall, extremely available just about anywhere you go. This is coming in at 100 proof, right around that $45 price point. And this is their single OBSV recipe. And again, as I mentioned, availability just about everywhere. So what we'll do is we'll go through each one of these quickly, nosing, tasting. And again, this is going to involve your participation. So not only for me, but for anybody coming back and wanting to know opinions, then they can look in the comments below and see exactly what people are recommending and why. So this is going to be, again, crucial for you to be involved in this so that, again, if you can only buy one of these two, which one is it going to be? So let's go ahead and dive into first the nose on the Four Roses Single Barrel. So my first impression always with the Four Roses Single Barrel is this spicy honey note. Incredible baking spices, almost a little bit of like a light chocolate note. Nice kind of vanilla, a little bit of mint that's there. Great overall nose so far. Spicy, sweet, nice balance to it. Let's dive into the palate and see exactly what this one's going to give us. Cheers. So on the palate, slightly different. Little more fruit note up front. Again, lingering baking spices. Again, a little bit of that kind of spicy honey note. Very much soft, elegant, floral. Spicy, again, a hint of chocolate, more fruit coming through on the palate. Yeah, I'll say this about the Four Roses Single Barrel is that it is always consistent. And I think for what it is that you're getting, this offers up a tremendous value. Again, at that $45 price point, this is going to be one of those bourbons that you can kind of go to on a daily basis. The proof point is great. The overall flavor profile and its consistency across the board make this kind of a home run type of bourbon every single day. Let's go ahead and move over to your right and the Four Roses Small Batch Select. We'll give you a little idea of the specs on that and what that has to offer on both the nose and the palate. All right, shifting gears over to what, in my opinion, is maybe a more elegant, softer sipping bourbon. So this again is the Four Roses Small Batch Select. It is coming in at 104 proof. It is non-chill filtered. The availability on this is, I'm going to say, equal to the Four Roses Single Barrel. This is a little bit different from the standpoint of it involves 6 of the 10 recipes that they have to offer. So this is going to add a little bit more maybe richness, a little more texture, maybe have a little more depth to it. So we'll kind of dive into that again as well. Now, price point on this is going to be more in that $55 to $65 price point. So give or take a few dollars, you're looking at maybe this being about $20 more than the Four Roses Single Barrel. So again, this is where the preference of the nose and the palate really being the main deciding factor. But this is where this will come into play as to how you enjoy this as a sipper versus something like this. So is this going to be maybe in that $20 price point more than the Single Barrel, worth it to you to spend on that? So let's go ahead and kind of dive into, again, the Four Roses Small Batch Select. So on the nose right away, again, there's a little bit more of that honey note that's there, but you're starting to get a little bit more depth. I'm going to pick up, it feels like a little bit more of an oak presence, a little bit more of an older, kind of dustier kind of oak profile on something like that. Definitely more fruit notes, nice spice factor to it, softer. It feels a little bit more elegant, not quite as aggressive spice-wise as I was getting on the Four Roses single barrel. Overall, really nice baking spices. This feels like it has a little subtle, maybe clove aspect to it. Again, also maybe a slight hint of chocolate, maybe a little bit of mint there on the nose as well. Overall, this feels like it would be an older type of bourbon. The nose on this feels a little bit richer while still being soft, but there feels like there's a little bit of age that's there. It's just kind of equaling, it feels like to me, a more well-balanced nose, and that probably has a lot to do with the fact that there are more recipes within this blend. Again, non-chill filtered, coming in at right around 104 proof. So not big proof difference, but I think the different mash bills are what's kind of showing up so far on the nose. But let's go ahead and dive into the palate, which is the most important thing, and we'll give you a little idea of what this one's gonna be. Cheers. So what I'll say immediately on the palate is this has a much softer, more elegant feel. Great mouthfeel, creamy, viscous. Proof point doesn't feel much different than the 100 proof. But one thing I will say is this feels much more mouth coating. There's more of a creaminess that this has, maybe feels a little bit more oily. I like the oak components of this a little bit more, where it feels like there are slightly older bourbons within this blend. And I think also where this, for me, feels like you get that little extra added value is with the different mash bills and blends that this has in it. I think you start to pull out some slightly different or more complex notes. So when you're talking about those kind of chocolates, spice, honey, a little bit of those kind of floral notes, this for me is where this starts to feel a little bit more towards when they release their limited editions with some of those older, more developed kind of bourbons. This feels a little bit more towards that than the Four Roses single barrel, where this is again a little bit more aggressive, heavier spice notes. Again, great bourbon, but for me, depending on what it is you're kind of in the mood for, this feels again like a more well-developed, more balanced, softer, more elegant type of bourbon. So for me, this is where this kind of comes down to what it is that you're looking for on a daily or nightly basis, or something that just fits your profile a little bit more. So again, I think you're gonna have an absolutely fantastic bourbon with their Four Roses single barrel, you know, as well as you're gonna have the same type of thing in terms of the balance and complexity in their Four Roses small batch select. So again, this is gonna come down to solely what it is you appreciate and what it is that you want within your bourbon that you're going to be sipping on that particular evening. So for me, in my opinion, if I'm just going to something daily and I know exactly what that profile is going to be, I'd probably lean a little bit more towards the Four Roses small batch select, just because it feels like it offers up more balance, a little bit more of that elegant kind of feel to it. It's not going to hit you with the big, bold spices that the Four Roses single barrel will, but in my opinion, this gives you overall a more rounded bourbon experience. So in my opinion, or if I was choosing, if you could only buy one based on just those kind of descriptors, me personally, I would lean a little bit more towards the Four Roses small batch select, just because of what it offers as a whole or in general. Now, this is where your participation is crucial. Leave a comment below for not only me, but for others who are coming back to know exactly, if you can only buy one, which one is that going to be and why. That is the most important part. So I think some context to what the situation may be, what it is you're looking for, you know, when, all of that plays a huge, huge factor. So again, we'll wrap it up with, if you can only buy one, which one's it gonna be? We'll see you next time, and remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers.